Joe Chan. Welcome to our podcast.
Thanks, Joan, for inviting me.
It's such a pleasure to have you. We've known each other for a few years now, and we always have a good laugh together, don't we?
That's true. I cannot deny.
So, Joe, I keep saying whoever I've invited in this tax series are all passionate about tax. Most people, probably the majority of people, would find this a bit strange, someone who likes tax. Why did you choose a career in tax?
Hey, Joan, before I stand further your examination in chief, let me take this auspicious occasion to congratulate you and your team for having changed to this so nice office.
Oh, thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Well done. I've known you since you left one of the biggest law firms in Mauritius, and you have been bold and courageous enough to stand on your feet.
Thank you. Thank you.
Then, why a career in tax? Why tax? You know, I'm sure that as a tax person, you have heard about Benjamin Franklin, the one who signed all the papers to declare for America to seek independence from UK, from the Great Britain at this time. Benjamin Franklin stated in one of his speech that there are only two certainties in life, death and tax. As death is a natural process, because you see, our passport one day or the other will expire, and we will surely have our visa stamped to go to the other space. And if naturally you will come across death, then as a person, why don't we start talking about tax? If Benjamin Franklin himself has stated that there are only two certainties in life, tax and death. So during the years I left school in, say, 1982, 1983, Mauritius was going through a difficult financial situation, very difficult. You surely heard about the 60 election. Then after that, the opportunity came. There was vacancies at the income tax department for training inspector. I sent my application, and luckily I was enrolled as training inspector as from 1993.
So that was before the MRA.
That was long before the MRA. The MRA was not even in the thought process of the government.
Sure.
You see, Jean, during my career at the income tax department, I was lucky enough to have been part of the predecessor of the MRA. I don't think that you know that before the MRA was set up, there was the large taxpayer department.
Not many people know that, I think.
Not many people. And one of my former bosses, who is now a tax advisor at a leading management company in Mauritius, I know, I think you know
I think I know who it is, yes.
Who he is, enrolled me in his team to set up the large taxpayer department. Our offices were found at the Raman Tower at Sir William Newton Street. There, we were the first one to deal with both income tax and VAT. And this was the predecessor of the now MRA. This was a good experience for me because I didn't know anything about VAT. It is there that I learned about VAT, what is input tax, what is output tax, etc. And then it is there that the Ministry of Finance decided to automate the tax filing process. And I was lucky enough to be part of the team who work on electronic submission of tax return.
When was that?
It was during the year 2000. Then I worked on the electronic submission of tax. I did all the testing with the team. We worked together with SIH, State Informatics Limited, to set up the platform to enable large taxpayers at this particular moment in time to submit their tax return electronically. And I was lucky enough to be part of the team which did the testing, all the formalities that was necessary to enable taxpayers to submit electronic tax return. If you are not passionate of tax, then I think you have to change profession.
So last week we had Riyad as a guest. It's exactly what he said. In fact, what he said was quite funny. He always tells his team, when you get married, you have your spouse. Let's assume you don't have children. You have your spouse. Tax should come next.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're in the wrong profession.
Yes, you're in the wrong. Say one day I will retire no sooner than later.
No, don't say that, Joe,
I would
please.
have to retire because age is now coming and il faut laisser la place aux jeunes maintenant. We have done our part. Nous avons apporté notre pierre à l'édifice. Now it's time for us because nul n'est indispensable. One of my former bosses have told me that, tu sais Joe, tous les gens indispensables vont au cimetière.
True.
Et les cimetières remplis de gens indispensables. This has given me some food for thought. And see, tax is so passionate. You cannot either you live with tax 100% or you don't do tax, because laws keep on changing, and if you are not in line with those changes and you wrongly advise your client based on all laws, you are done. No one will trust you.
And also, we're actually talking about real numbers here.
Yes, we are talking about figures. We are talking about millions, dollars, name it. You name it. Singapore dollars, you name it. Whatever currencies, rupees, even our rupees are depreciating, never mind. But we are talking about millions here. If you give the wrong advice to your client because you are not updated, you are done.
You're threatening that you're kind of preparing your succession. How do you prepare your team to handle the mantle after you?
Good question, Joan. You see, each and every member of my staff, they have their different mindset about work. See, some will need coaching, some don't need coaching, some will get to the point straight, other beat above the bush, but they will arrive to the same result. What I tell my staff is that when you are doing your work, one day or the other, when you work on the street, you must be able to work your chest forward. You must always be diligent, and then you must not be seen to be dealing with monkey business. Always do things right. Always do things according to the law. Never, ever let yourself be remote controlled by your client. You are here to give a professional advice to your client. Give your professional advice to your client, and your advice should be according to whatever law, to whatever fiscal legislations you are dealing with. Don't enter into any fishy business. Walk straight, do your work, always be on time to reply to your client. Don't leave emails unattended, and then things will be good for you. One of our biggest clients, one of those famous investment banks in India, you know them. They want you to reply to their emails before they send you their questions. If you are not alert enough, if you do not know how to handle them, they will lose trust. And when they lose trust, you are done. So what I tell my staff is that always be punctual in your meeting. If you're on time, you're late. Never be on time, be always before time.
So, and always, in a way, there's a saying that goes, always under promise and over deliver.
Yes. This, and then, you see, then work, be always up to date, because laws keep on changing, you must always be on top of each and every change that happen during the year. Be up to date with all tax cases. Know all tax cases. Go and do research. Now with internet, you are well equipped. If you subscribe to ARC website, if you subscribe to the Supreme Court website, you will have ton of judgments there. And if you read those judgments, you will know how to write. Reading and writing, they are, for me, if you don't read, you won't know how to write.
It goes hand in hand.
They go hand in hand, and At times, me myself, when I read something, I say, is it myself that I have written those things? You are aware of this, John?
Yes, yes.
Because, if you read those decisions from the Supreme Court, you will be knowledgeable. You will know what you are talking about because the judges are here to guide us in interpretation of tax laws. Sometimes they may be wrong because there's the Privy Council which sometimes they get some slashing over there. Go to the Supreme Court website, go to the ARC's website, you will find some quite interesting determinations, rulings over there, and your knowledge will grow.
Did you always have the same mindset when you were on the other side of the fence? The reason I ask my questions is that, I've never worked for Revenue Authority. I've always been in private practice or in the industry. One of our struggles, our daily struggles, and I know you share a little bit in that struggle as well, is that we don't always see eye to eye with the interpretation of the law, the way they apply the law, etc. Was it a big shock when you moved from the Revenue Authority?
No. What made my strength when I was at the income tax department is that I was not afraid of delivering. I was not afraid of, and I always stand on my decision. Whether it be good decision or bad, I'm always here to motivate my decision. And then it's up to those who are higher up than me in the hierarchy to decide. I always stand. See, today I had a shock, one of the greatest shocks in my life, and I did forward to you the contemplation letter.
I haven't read it yet, Joe.
If the MRA has decided to disallow for a domestic company fees that the domestic company is paying to a management company, because the MRA is saying that those expenses are not included in the production of the company's income. Come on, man.
If this was the 1st of April, I would have said it's an April Fool's joke.
Come on, man. How can they decide like this?
On what basis?
I don't know, because they are telling that the company has not received any income, so they are disallowing those expenses. So, you see, when you are on the other side of the table, and me, I am on this side of the table, we are reading the same text. And by God's sake, they mean the same for me and for you. Sometimes we can have different opinions, but for God's sake, sometimes please accept things as they are.
Sure.
Don't reinvent the wheel. This is one of the greatest struggles I have with the taxing authorities, to tell them, don't reinvent the wheel. The wheel is here. You have to go with the wheel. This is one thing. And when I was on the other side of the table, those my present colleagues, they tell me, Jonathan, when you are on the other side of the table, you didn't do us any favor.
Really?
Yeah. I told them why, because they told me that I was strict on my interpretation of the law, but then I told them that, you see, when you're on the other side of the table, you tend to interpret things in favor of the revenue.
Sure. As we, as tax advisors, interpret things in favor of the taxpayer.
Yeah, and then if we disagree, I would not have raised any blind assessment. Before I raise assessment, I would have informed the client and his tax representative. If you are loggerhead, then we go to the objection unit, we go to the ARC. Because I have to protect the revenue and you have to protect your client. This is our role. So I did not see any difficulty from shifting from one side of the table to the other.
Sure. Okay, I understand that point of view, but in terms of how you go about your work, you were just mentioning about a client who we know quite well, who expects an answer before the email has gone out. Surely in terms of delivery and the daily pressure, it's a bit more on the private sector side, or is it just as bad?
No. Nowadays, from some horse's mouth, I know that the pressure is mounting at the MRA, because I know that the level of KPI has substantially increased.
Sure.
Because, see, when I was at the tax department, when I was enrolled at the tax department, I have received 2 years of training before I qualify as tax inspector. I received training only on income tax. Now, those guys at the MRA, you know how many taxes, how many laws they have to monitor? Income tax, VAT, solidarity levy, the other
Gaming tax.
gaming
Yes.
tax, environment protection fee, and whatnot.
Yes. Yes.
One thing that is missing within the portfolio, I'm sure, is the sewage tax. I think that this will come one day.
Probably.
I don't know if they have received training to deliver on those acts, because my group, when we joined the income tax reporter, we were around 42 of us, and all the 42 of us had only one act to learn, the Income Tax Act. Now see how many acts they have to administer.
Sure. And that was pre-BEPS era.
Yes, this was pre-BEPS, pre-whatnot, pre all those pillar 1, pillar 2, and whatnot pillars. You mentioned the pillar, and then now with international taxation coming into place, transfer pricing and whatnot, I pity them.
Sometimes as well, we think that from a capacity building perspective, I mean, we've seen some transfer pricing cases, etc. We don't have transfer pricing regulations. We don't have transfer pricing guidelines. Sometimes we do wonder, are you understanding the transaction as they are?
For me, the people at the MRA, they have only this section 19, then there's the section of the that's to administer, and it is only these two sections that talk about transfer pricing in between inverted commas. And you see the havoc that the Supreme Court decision in the case of Inodis will do in the business world. I don't know how group companies will go to and administer all those interest-free loans, because this is a commercial reality among group companies. If I'm short of funds, my other sister company has cash, they advance me cash for me to. So this, for me, this is the commercial reality. And then
it's not driven by tax avoidance.
It's not driven by tax avoidance. On the other hand, it is driven for them. It is driven for the sake for them to save on interest.
If they were to take the loan.
If they have to take loan from the bank.
Yeah.
You see, if this will come as one of my wish lists for the forthcoming budget speech. If you are taxing the interest, why don't we include in our Income Tax Act provisions for group relief?
Yes.
Provision for group relief, as this is done in some nearly all sophisticated jurisdictions. You agree with me?
Yes, and I think that's one of the probably representations that we make on an almost annual basis.
Yeah. Allow for group
relief.
Have
group relief.
Yeah, allow for group relief. And then the taxing authority cannot have the cake and eat it.
Sure.
If you are taxing them interest, allow for group relief.
Going back to case law, I mean, you mentioned the Inodis case, and we'll have to see what the repercussions are from that. And you also mentioned that you regularly encourage your team to read the case law. And I also have to thank you for that, because I know when there's a Supreme Court judgment that comes out, the first person to send it to me is Joe Chan. So thank you for that. But one of the first things that we bonded over was the infamous toilet paper case. So whenever I'm training a new staff, I always tell them about that case. Why is that case important? I mean, we're laughing because we're talking about toilet paper.
You see,
but it is an important case.
Yes, it is. You see, when I was studying for SCCA taxation, the taxation module, when we're studying badges of trade, this was one of the first tax cases that we came across, the toilet paper case, the famous Routledge versus CIO. Then you see, to make people be aware of tax cases, there must be certain things that you must throw in their head for them to
remember.
To remember. And for me, the toilet paper case, the Routledge versus CIO case, is so easy for a young who aspires to be a tax professional to know. And then when the COVID-19 pandemic was here, and then when you see in Europe and Australia, people running after rolls of toilet papers in the supermarkets.
It reminded you of that. Yes. Of the trading in toilet paper.
The toilet paper case. And then I told my members of my mind, look, Routledge versus CIO over there. People running after toilet papers. Then this is funny, you know, Juan, because this is how I learned tax cases.
Even our videographers are laughing right now. So sorry, I'm looking at one of them. But it's true, it's a real case. I think we should indulge the audience with the basic facts so that they know what we're talking about and why it's important to Mauritius. Why is whether you're trading in toilet paper important?
You see, toilet paper, when When you talk about the toilet paper case, when you look at the budgets of trade, you see, why does someone have to buy toilet rolls in so large quantity? There's no, like the judges say, there's no pride of possession in toilet papers. And the guy has disposed of the toilet papers. He did not want to pay taxes on it. So this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And also it's particularly important for non-tax people in Mauritius because we do not have tax on capital gains.
Yes.
So there's always this kind of debate.
Demarcation line between capital
trading
and revenue.
Yeah, exactly.
So the toilet paper case is very famous for this.
Indeed. So, but what has been personally for you your most satisfying tax case that you've resolved?
Well, me and my team, including you, Joanne, we were part,
Yes,
we
I
were
remember
part
that case.
of the same vessel. We had to make the MRA think well before issuing assessment. And even after our explanations, they did issue the necessary assessment. It was the case of a group of companies which were involved in renting properties. They sold their property, and when they sold the property, they did the clawback of that. You see, when a property dealer, before the end of the 20th year, whenever they have claim input tax on the property, when they dispose of it, they have to claw back.
Of course.
MRA did not agree on the clawback. MRA stated that these companies are property dealing company and the property are stock in trade for them, and they stated that they have to apply VAT at standard rate 15%. Bow. And then on the other hand, on the same cases, we had the issue of whether for tax purposes that any profit derived from the sales of the properties, whether they are subject to tax or not. We had to look for so many tax cases together. We had to go to the MRA and bang the table so many times there.
Yeah, and we were successful.
And we
didn't even have to go to the ARC.
Yes, and we didn't even have to go to the ARC. And then when we objected, based on the grounds of objections that we have submitted, the objection unit there agreed to our proposals. Then there was no tax, and the client was happy.
And I always say whenever, I'm speaking to the girls in the office and we're, getting ready for a case at the ARC, I always say the objective is not to win a case at the ARC. The objective is to have a satisfactory conclusion to the case.
Yes.
If it happens at audit stage, great. If it happens at objection stage, great. It's not the mentality of I have to go to court, I have to litigate.
No.
Because at the end of the day, the client, not many people know that probably outside the tax world, even if you were to win a case at the ARC, you will never recoup your legal fees and tax advisors' fees back. Yes. So our job is to try to see eye to eye with the MRA before it ever goes to litigation, actually.
Yes, I agree with you, because the satisfaction that we derive from having well advised a client and then the case comes to a fruition, this makes you one of the happiest people on earth.
Yeah, it's very, very, very satisfying. You've touched on that briefly when you were talking about how you train your team and how you advise them, but if they were to, obviously I hope you still are alive for another 40 years at least, but what legacy would you wish to leave with them if they were to think, Joe used to tell me this?
Always be on the alert for changes, and then always stand by your decision, because there's no right, there's no wrong decision. If you are someone of conviction and you are passionate about tax, see, tax is a matter of interpretation. Even judges at the Privy Council, when we read their dissenting judgments, this tells you all, Joan. If among judges' cases of the Privy Council, there are dissenting judgments on tax matters, then for us ordinary people, if our stand goes wrong, then for me there's nothing bad in it. So be it. You agree?
Yeah, I agree. Last question, Joe. We are gearing up to the time where we will have to make budget representations.
Yes.
Some of them we make every single year, like group relief. But if you were to talk about 2023, when a post-pandemic world, inflation, depreciation, all those macroeconomic issues that were undergoing, what would be the one thing that's on your budget wish list for this year?
For this year, remove solidarity levy, please. Please. Because,
Why?
Because you don't know what harm this is causing to the tax-paying population. You see, when I joined the tax department, corporate tax rate was as high as 70%.
70?
Yes, 70%.
70?
70 those days. Now, when the government came in with the bold measures of decreasing the tax rate by 35%, revenue collection increased by 3%.
There was less avoidance.
Less avoidance. When we, as an IFC, if we are to market Mauritius as a business-friendly environment, and if you have this 25/40% tax ban for high-income earners, do you think that they will come to Mauritius? If we compare our tax rate with that of Singapore, no, they will not come. And you are aiming to attract the Mauritian diaspora to come back to settle. Before the introduction of the solidarity levy, so many of them came. And we know so many of them, Joan. So many of them came and settled to Mauritius because of the attractive tax rate.
Yes.
Have there been a study done to show the impact of solidarity levy in the tax collection?
I think the government would say that they have raised substantial amounts of money from it.
I don't think so. Because the more taxes, the more people will devise scheme, eliminate solidarity levy. And then, as I told you previously, group relief will do our economy good. And then transfer pricing regulations that are in line with international principles will be most welcome. For taxpayers, those I think are the main wish lists for the forthcoming budget.
Thank you. And I look forward to having a nice biryani session this year, as we do every year for the budget.
Yes, you will be most welcome, John.
Every time someone new joins, I tell them there's only one night of your life in this office, in this chambers, where you will have to do an all-nighter. Yes. It's budget night.
It's rewarding.
It's rewarding because I know that, all the big four do it. It's a worthwhile exercise.
Yes, but I think this year at the office, we will listen to the budget speech, but I don't think we will work till 3 a.m., 4 a.m. to issue the budget brief, because so many people late. We'll try to find innovative ways to disseminate the budget proposals.
And you have a bigger team now.
Yes, I have a bigger team.
Last questions. So I know that you guys do really great trainings. Actually, you just gave one from one of them. What would be your next training, and why should people join it?
Yeah, our next training will be on PR, the partial exemption regime. I know that so many institutions have given training on this topic before, but you will find it different because we will approach it in a different angle.
Okay.
Come and please join the Andersen/FSI tax training, which will be held later in the month of April, and then you will see that there will be a difference from what you have learned about PR and what we are going to deliver on PR, because PR is according to a set guidelines under the Income Tax Act.
Sure.
And we will try to make it become more interactive, more interesting for you to understand the concept itself of PR, of the partial exemption regime.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joan.